The problem no one could solve if rain had been falling for 3 days straight, soaking the city in a heavy gray mood. Inside Google's headquarters, the atmosphere wasn't much brighter. The meeting room on the top floor was filled with 30 of the company's brightest engineers, each one looking more defeated than the last. Charts covered the walls, lines of code filled massive screens, and yet the answer they needed refused to appear. The problem wasn't just any technical bug. It was a flaw in the company's most important upcoming project, a technology meant to change the way billions of people access the internet. The product was supposed to launch in 2 weeks, and every passing hour without a solution cost millions of dollars. Worse, if they failed, it could damage Google's reputation for years. One engineer, a tired man with dark circles under his eyes, broke the silence. We've tried every approach. The system keeps crashing when it reaches high traffic. No matter how we adjust the algorithm, it can't handle the load. Another voice added, "This isn't just a delay problem. If we release it like this, it'll fail within minutes of going live." The room was quiet again. They all knew what was at stake. Then the door opened, and Sundar Pichai walked in. He wasn't wearing a suit, just a simple sweater, jeans, and his familiar calm expression. But there was a certain weight in his eyes, the kind that came from understanding the gravity of a situation. He didn't say anything at first. Instead, he walked to the large screen at the end of the table, scanned the messy lines of code, and quietly asked, "How long have you been stuck on this?" 3 months, one engineer admitted. "We've run every simulation we can think of. Nothing works." Sundar nodded slowly, then looked around the room. "So, you've all been looking at this problem the same way? Maybe that's the problem." Someone scoffed quietly. Not out of disrespect, but frustration. We're not exactly amateurs, Sundar. This is the most advanced infrastructure we've ever built. If 30 of us can't solve it, there's no magic fix. But Sundar didn't react with irritation. He simply said, "Sometimes the solution isn't where you expect to find it. Sometimes it's in the thing you've already dismissed." The engineers exchanged glances. He pulled up a chair, sat down, and began scrolling through the system's architecture. His fingers moved quickly, but his eyes were calm and precise. "What if," he began slowly, "this isn't a scaling issue at all? What if it's a timing conflict buried deep in the synchronization layer?" A young developer frowned. "We already tested the timing layer. It's fine." "No," Sundar said softly. "You tested it under normal conditions." "But what happens when you introduce artificial latency?" For a moment, the room was frozen. The lead engineer quickly typed commands into the system. A new simulation began running, one they hadn't tried before. And then it happened. The screen lit up with red errors they had never seen. The timing layer failed almost instantly. The room erupted in a mixture of shock and disbelief. How did you even think of that?" Someone asked. Sundar smiled faintly. "Because sometimes, to find the weak point, you have to break what already looks perfect." His words carried more than just technical wisdom. They carried a lesson about life. But before anyone could process it, another alarm flashed on the screen. This one wasn't from the simulation. It was a real-time system alert. The test servers in Asia had just gone down. The engineers looked at each other in panic. "That's impossible. We weren't even touching those servers." Sundar's eyes narrowed. "It's not impossible. It means someone or something is interfering." There was a tense silence. "Do you think it's an internal bug?" One engineer asked. "No," Sundar said firmly. "I think we might be dealing with a breach." The room went still. In all their months of testing, they had been focused only on fixing the system. None of them had considered the possibility that an outside force might already be exploiting the flaw. Sundar stood up. "Listen to me carefully. If this is what I think it is, we don't just have a technical problem anymore. We have a race against whoever is on the other side of this breach. And they're already ahead." The rain outside hit the windows harder, like the storm itself knew something was coming. Sundar glanced at the clock. "We have less than 24 hours to secure the system before the breach spreads. Someone asked in a shaky voice. And if we don't? Sundar didn't answer. Instead, he walked to the door, paused, and said quietly, then it won't just be Google that's in trouble. The entire internet could be at risk. The door closed behind him, leaving the room full of stunned faces. Asterisk shadows inside the systemed hallway outside the meeting room was quiet, but Sundar's mind was anything but. His steps were slow, deliberate, like each one was calculating the next 10 moves ahead. He had seen enough in the simulation to confirm his fear. The flaw in the system was not only technical, but was being actively manipulated. And that meant someone had found a way in. Whether it was a lone hacker, a rival company, or a coordinated attack, one thing was certain. They knew exactly where the system was weakest. He reached his office, a minimalist space with a wide glass wall that overlooked the city. Normally, he found calm in that view, but tonight it only reminded him how much was at stake. Billions of people around the world depended on the stability of Google's platforms. If the breach spread, it could disrupt banking systems, health networks, transportation grids, everything tied to the internet. This wasn't just a corporate crisis. It was a global one. He sat down at his desk, powered up his secure terminal, and connected to an isolated network. In seconds, lines of encrypted code filled the screen. He began tracing the breach like a detective following muddy footprints in a dark forest. Each trace revealed more. A cluster of failed authentications, unusual data requests, and one anomaly that made him stop. The breach wasn't random. It was moving in a pattern, not just any pattern. It was mimicking normal traffic from inside Google's own infrastructure. His fingers froze on the keyboard. This is coming from inside. He immediately opened an internal security channel and summoned Maya Kapoor, the head of cyber defense. Maya was sharp, methodical, and unshaken under pressure. Within minutes, she arrived, carrying a laptop under her arm, her eyes scanning Sundar's screen before she even sat down. I traced the origin, Sundar told her quietly. It's bouncing across multiple internal servers, masking itself as legitimate activity. If we didn't know what to look for, we'd never notice. Maya frowned, her hands flying across her keyboard. This is sophisticated. Whoever's behind it knows our architecture better than most of our own engineers. They're not just exploiting the flaw, they're testing us. Testing. The word hit Sundar like a hammer. Someone out there was pushing the system to see how far they could go before getting caught. And if they had already taken down the Asian test servers, they were only a step away from targeting the global core. There's more, Maya added. Look at this access log. She pulled up a file showing employee logins from the past week. Amid the thousands of entries, one stood out, an access attempt from an engineer who is currently on medical leave. He's been offline for 2 months, Maya said. But his credentials were used yesterday. From a location halfway across the world. Sundar's mind was already connecting the dots. Either his account was stolen, or someone inside is using it to hide their own identity. They both knew which possibility was more dangerous. Before they could go deeper, the wall-mounted alert system in Sundar's office lit up red. A voice from the building's automated system came through. Priority security breach. Main server farm 3. Compromised. Maya's face tightened. That's our largest backup cluster. If they take that, they can copy our entire database. Sundar grabbed his phone and called the operations floor. Lock down farm 3. Now. But the reply came back trembling. Sir, we can't. The access override is already active. A chill moved through Sundar's chest. The override could only be triggered by someone with the highest level clearance. Clearance that only a handful of people in the entire company had. Find out who activated it, he said sharply. Maya was already on it, her fingers moving like lightning. Within moments, the name appeared on her screen, and it made her stop cold. She turned to Sundar, her voice low. You're not going to like this. His eyes scanned the name. It wasn't just anyone. It was one of the 30 engineers who had been in the meeting room an hour ago. Someone who had looked him in the eye and claimed they wanted to solve the problem. His thoughts raced. Was this betrayal, desperation, or something far worse? A hidden agenda that had been in motion long before the bug was discovered? Maya broke the silence. If this person is still in the building, we have a chance to stop them before they extract anything, but we have to move now. Sundar nodded, but his mind was already a step ahead. No, if they're this deep, they'll have an escape plan. We need to catch them not just for what they've done tonight, but to find out who they're working for. They left the office, heading for the server farm floor. The corridors were eerily quiet, except for the hum of machines behind closed doors. Sundar's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. He glanced down at the screen and saw just 4 words. You can't stop this. For the first time in years, Sundar felt a flash of real fear. Not for himself, but for what this meant. Someone was confident enough to taunt him in the middle of an active breach. Maya saw the look on his face. What is it? He showed her the message. She didn't say anything, but her jaw tightened. When they reached the server farm entrance, 2 security guards were standing by the locked doors. No one's gone in or out since the alert, one guard said. Then whoever's behind this is still inside, Sundar replied. The guards exchanged glances. Then the doors inside. The cold air from the rows of servers hit them like a wall. The sound of whirring fans filled the room, masking any other noise. They moved quickly, checking each row, but found nothing until they reached the far corner. There, crouched near an open terminal, was a figure in a hoodie, typing furiously. Maya stepped forward, hands off the keyboard. The figure didn't move. Sundar's voice was calm, but deadly serious. Turn around. The person slowly lifted their head, and Sundar's eyes widened. It wasn't the engineer they were expecting. It was someone else entirely. Someone who wasn't even supposed to be in the building. Asterisk, the face from the past figure in the hoodie, didn't flinch under the harsh glow of the server room lights. For a moment, Sundar thought the hum of the machines had grown louder, pressing against his ears, forcing every heartbeat to echo inside his skull. The intruder's eyes finally met his, and in that instant, Sundar felt the ground shift beneath him. It wasn't a stranger. It was Arjun Malhotra. Years ago, before Sundar became the CEO of Google, before the world knew his name, Arjun had been his closest friend and collaborator. They had shared ideas late into the night back in their days at Stanford, sketching concepts on scraps of paper, dreaming of building something that would change the world. Arjun had been brilliant, fearless in his thinking, unconventional in his methods, but also stubborn and impatient. Their friendship had ended abruptly after a bitter disagreement over a project they had been developing together. Sundar had chosen the ethical route, refusing to compromise user privacy for speed. Arjun had seen that decision as weakness, and they hadn't spoken in over a decade. And now, here he was, hunched over Google's most secure servers in the middle of a live breach. Maya kept her voice sharp. Step away from the terminal, Arjun. Arjun didn't move. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms as if this were some casual reunion. Funny, he said, his voice calm, but laced with something darker. All these years, and the first time we see each other again. You look exactly the same, still playing the hero. Sundar took a step forward, keeping his own tone controlled. Why are you here? And don't pretend this is some coincidence. Arjun's eyes flickered with something between amusement and challenge. Coincidence? No, my friend. This is fate. I'm here because your company built something too powerful to be left in your hands. You and your 30 engineers have been struggling with a flaw for months. But I've been watching. I know what the flaw really is. And what it could become. Maya's patience was thinning. You've breached a secure facility. That's a federal crime. You can talk to us now, or you can talk to the authorities. But Arjun didn't even glance at her. His focus was locked on Sundar. Do you remember that algorithm we worked on in grad school? The one that could predict data flow in real time? The one you refused to deploy because you were afraid it could be abused? Sundar's jaw tightened. Yes, and I was right. You were naive, Arjun shot back. That algorithm, our algorithm, is the key to stabilizing your broken system. But you buried it. You let the world move on while someone like me, took it and made it better. Maya looked between them, realization dawning. Are you saying you created this breach? Arjun gave a small, almost smug nod. I didn't just create it. I designed it as a test. I wanted to see how long it would take Sundar to realize he's been solving the wrong problem. Sundar's mind was working faster than ever. He knew Arjun's brilliance. If this was a test, then the breach wasn't just about breaking in. It was about proving a point. Forcing Sundar into a corner where the only solution would be to use the very technology he had once rejected. Why? Sundar asked, quietly, what are you really after? Arjun's eyes softened for just a second, and Sundar saw a shadow of the friend he once knew, but it vanished quickly. I'm after the same thing we were always after. Control over the future. The difference is, I'm willing to do what you never could. Maya stepped closer to Sundar and whispered, we should call security now. But Sundar held up a hand. Not yet. He looked back at Arjun. You're playing with fire? If your breach spreads beyond this network, it won't just damage Google. It could destabilize global infrastructure. Hospitals, airports, banks. You know that, don't you? Arjun's reply was almost chilling in its simplicity. Of course. And that's why you'll have to listen to me. Because the only way to stop it is to work with me. Maya's eyes widened in disbelief. He's manipulating you. Maybe, Sundar said. But if he's telling the truth, the clock is ticking. Arjun leaned forward, his voice low, almost conspiratorial. 21 hours. That's how long you have before the breach reaches your live production servers. I can contain it. I can fix it, but only if you agree to my terms. And those are? Sundar asked. Arjun's smile returned. Full access to your entire infrastructure. No restrictions. No oversight. You give me that and I'll save your system. Refuse. And you'll be cleaning up the largest digital collapse in history. The words hung in the air like a loaded weapon. Sundar could feel Maya's gaze burning into him, silently urging him to shut this down. But deep inside, a voice he didn't want to hear whispered that Arjun might actually be telling the truth. And then, as if to confirm the urgency, Sundar's phone buzzed. A new alert appeared. Breach detected in European financial network. It had already begun spreading beyond Google. Maya swore under her breath. This is bigger than we thought. We need to bring in government cyber agencies. But Sundar's mind was somewhere else, back in that small Stanford apartment, when he and Arjun had first dreamed of what their work could become. He remembered the promise they made to each other, and how that promise had broken. Now, standing in the cold hum of the server room, Sundar realized he had to decide whether to trust the man who had once been his greatest ally, and might now be his greatest threat. Arjun extended his hand, his eyes locked on Sundar's. What's it going to be? Asterisk a deal with the storm. The server room felt colder now. Not because of the air conditioning, but because the weight of Arjun's ultimatum hung over every breath. Sundar stood still, his eyes fixed on the hand extended toward him, but his mind was caught in a storm of calculation. He could hear Maya shifting beside him, her impatience growing sharper by the second. In her world, there was no gray. Arjun was a criminal, and criminals didn't negotiate. But Sundar's world had always been more complicated. He had learned long ago that sometimes the right choice looked like the wrong one, and sometimes the person you least wanted to trust held the only key to survival. Arjun was dangerous, that much was certain. But he was also a genius, and the breach wasn't waiting for them to date morals. Every second they hesitated, it spread further, slipping into networks it had no business touching. Finally, Sundar spoke, his voice calm but edged with steel. You'll get limited access. Monitored at every step. One false move, and it's over. Arjun's smile curved like a blade. You think you can watch me closely enough to stop me? Fine, I'll play along. But you'll see soon enough. The system you've built isn't strong enough to stop someone like me. The only reason it's still standing is because I haven't decided to push harder. Maya muttered under her breath, but Sundar didn't respond. Instead, he motioned for Arjun to follow them out of the server room as they walked through the hallways. Security teams shadowed them, keeping their distance, but ready to move if Arjun made the slightest wrong move. He looked oddly comfortable, his eyes drifting to the walls lined with innovation awards, patents, and framed photos of the company's milestones. All these achievements, Arjun said softly, and yet you still play it safe. The world doesn't need safe, Sundar. It needs bold. It needs people who are willing to burn the old systems to the ground and build something better from the ashes. Burning things to the ground is easy, Sundar replied. Keeping them standing, that's the real challenge. They reached a secure operations lab, a space designed for the most sensitive troubleshooting. The air was heavy with the faint scent of overheated electronics, and the room glowed with the light of dozens of screens, each showing live system maps from around the world. Red warning icons blinked in clusters: Asia, Europe, parts of South America. The breach was moving faster than anyone had predicted. Maya leaned over one of the consoles. The European financial sector is taking heavy hits. Some banks are already losing connectivity. If this continues, it could cause chain reactions in stock exchanges. Arjun's gaze followed the blinking alerts. This isn't random anymore. Whoever's piggybacking on my breach is targeting systems that will cause maximum panic. This isn't just about you, Sundar. It's about destabilizing trust in the entire internet. Then you're not the only one inside the system, Sundar said quietly. Arjun gave a slow nod. No. Someone else saw the door I opened and decided to walk through. And they're moving fast. Maya spun toward him. If you didn't plan this part, then you've lost control of your own creation. Why should we believe you can fix it? Arjun's expression darkened. Because I know how they're thinking, and because I didn't lose control, I left a trigger in the code. One command from me, and the breach collapses. But if I trigger it now, without isolating the intruder's payload, we could crash. Half the systems we're trying to save. Sundar stepped closer, his voice low. So you can stop it, but not without causing massive collateral damage unless you trace them first. Exactly, Arjun said. And tracing them isn't just about stopping this attack. It's about finding out who's behind it and why. Trust me, Sundar, they're not just after data. They're after control. For a long moment, Sundar said nothing. Then he turned to Maya. Bring him into the sandbox environment. Give him the access he needs, but keep a full shadow trace. On every keystroke, nothing leaves this room without us knowing. Maya looked like she wanted to argue, but she caught the tone in Sundar's voice and instead nodded curtly. They set Arjun up at a separate terminal, isolated but connected to a simulated mirror of the live system. Every move he made lit up on a secondary display that Maya monitored like a hawk. At first, his fingers flew across the keyboard in bursts of confidence. But then Sundar noticed something. Arjun's posture shifted, his focus sharpening in a way that told Sundar he'd found something. What is it? Sundar asked. Arjun leaned back, a strange mix of awe and unease in his expression. Whoever this is, they're not working alone. They're a network, dozens of nodes operating in sync. And here's the worst part. They're not stealing anything. They're planting something. Maya's eyes narrowed. Planting what? Arjun tapped a few keys, pulling up a string of code. A failsafe. A deep system sleeper that won't activate now. But later, maybe weeks from now. It's designed to stay invisible until a specific trigger event. Once it activates, it could lock down entire infrastructures, demand ransoms, or worse, rewrite critical data. The room went silent except for the hum of the servers. Sundar felt the gravity of it pressing on his chest. They're building a kill switch for the digital world, Arjun said quietly. And if they succeed, they won't just control the internet. They'll control governments, economies, everything. Before anyone could respond, an alert tone cut through the room. Maya looked up sharply. The breach just hit one of our satellite communication relays. If they compromise that, they can intercept and manipulate global data transfers. Arjun turned to Sundar, urgency in his voice. This is it. We either act now and risk breaking parts of your system, or we wait and they get the kill switch in place. There's no middle ground. Sundar's mind was racing. Acting now could cause chaos in the short term, but waiting could hand over the future to an unseen enemy. And in that moment, he realized this wasn't just a battle to save Google. It was a battle to save the very trust that held the modern world together. He looked at Arjun. Prepare the shutdown protocol, but we're going to do it my way. Arjun raised an eyebrow. And what's your way? Sundar leaned in. We're not just going to stop them. We're going to catch them. Asterisk hunting ghosts operations. Lab was thick with tension, every screen alive with movement, every heartbeat synced to the flashing of alerts. Sundar stood behind Arjun, his arms crossed, his mind balancing on the razor edge between action and disaster. Maya's eyes darted from one terminal to the next, her fingers never stopping as she coordinated security teams, monitored network activity, and prepared backup contingencies in case Sundar's plan went wrong. The shutdown protocol they were building wasn't a normal failsafe. It wasn't designed just to kill the breach. It was a trap, a digital snare meant to make. The shadow network believed they had won, just long enough to reveal their real location. The idea was simple in theory, but dangerously complex in execution. They would have to let the breach progress, just far enough for the attackers to commit fully, then trigger a controlled collapse that would lock them inside their own tunnels of access. If you mistime this by even a few seconds, Maya warned, you could crash half of our live systems and still not catch them. Sundar didn't take his eyes off the main display. Then we won't mistime it. Arjun's voice came from the terminal, calm but fast-paced. The breach nodes are moving like clockwork. They're synchronized to a central command structure. And if I'm reading this right, that command isn't coming from any single server. It's bouncing through physical access points all over the world. Singapore, Berlin, Sao Paulo, Nairobi. They've got someone on the ground in every time zone. Maya's head snapped toward him. So this isn't just code. This is an operation. Arjun nodded, and those operations always have a hub. A place where the real brain sits. You trap the brain, the body collapses. How do we find the hub? Sundar asked. Arjun tapped the keyboard again, lines of code racing past. We make them think they've cornered you, Sundar. We make you look like prey. Maya's mouth tightened. You're asking us to hand them the keys to the kingdom. No, Sundar said, stepping forward. We hand them a fake kingdom, one they believe is real. A mirror of our live systems, complete with enough sensitive looking data to tempt them deeper. Once they're inside, we lock every door behind them. Maya hesitated, but she knew there was no time for another plan. I'll prepare the mirror. The team moved like a single organism now, each person playing their part. The mirror network began to take shape, an exact replica of the real. Systems, down to the smallest database field. To the shadow network, it would look like they had broken into the crown jewel of Google's infrastructure. But even as they worked, the breach was spreading. The attackers had penetrated deeper into the European financial sector. And now red alerts were starting to blink over the Middle East and parts of North America. They're accelerating. Arjun said, his tone darker now. We've got less than 2 hours before they try to deploy the kill switch. Maya looked at Sundar. We need to launch the bait now. Sundar nodded. Do it. Within seconds, the mirror network lit up as active. In another part of the world, maybe in a darkened room filled with glowing screens, maybe in the corner of a cafe where no one would suspect, someone in the shadow network saw the opening and moved in. They've taken the bait, Maya confirmed. Multiple nodes are converging on the mirror. They think they're in the live environment. Good, Sundar said quietly. Let them dig. For 30 long minutes, the room became a battleground in silence. On the screens, they watched. As the attackers navigated through the mirror, touching files, probing systems, leaving behind digital fingerprints they thought were invisible, Arjun traced every move, his code weaving around theirs, tagging their connections like invisible. To RIPWIREs.then, without warning, Arjun stiffened. I've got it. The central command relay just revealed itself, somewhere in Prague. And they're routing everything through a private satellite link. We cut that link, and we've got them. Maya's fingers flew over her console. Already. Working on a satellite intercept request with our security partners. But before she could finish, another alert exploded across the screen. They realized something's wrong, Arjun said. Someone on their side just ran a deep scan. They're starting to pull back. Sundar stepped forward, his voice firm. Lock the doors. Arjun's hands blurred over the keys, sending the shutdown protocol racing through the mirror network. One by one, the attackers' connections froze in place, caught mid-command, unable to retreat. Maya's voice cut through the hum of servers. We've got 17 nodes locked. Tracing. 6 confirmed physical locations. The lab erupted into a flurry of controlled chaos as security teams worldwide were alerted but then a sudden spike. One locked node broke free, slipping out through an unmonitored relay point. Arjun's eyes narrowed. That wasn't supposed to happen. Or is it going? Sundar demanded. Arjun's face paled slightly. Straight into your personal secure account. For the first time that night, Sundar felt the cold bite of real fear. My account is offline. Not anymore, Arjun said grimly. They just turned it on. And then, as if to twist the knife, Sundar's phone buzzed. A message appeared. On the lock screen, no number, no name, just one sentence. You still don't see the whole picture. Asterisk, the final layer of lab went silent, except for the low, constant hum of machines. The words on Sundar's phone screen burned into his mind. You still don't see the whole picture. They weren't just taunting him. They were warning him or perhaps daring him to look deeper. His personal secure account was more than just a vault of documents and private communications. It was a gateway, a top-level access point that could, if compromised, give someone the keys to not just Google's systems, but integrated networks across several allied companies and institutions. It was, by design, an offline fortress. Until now, Maya's voice broke the silence, sharp and urgent. We need to cut your account power source right now. Physically sever it? If they've breached the isolation layer, Arjun interrupted, his tone almost too calm. If you cut it now, we lose the trace. They went there for a reason. And I think I know what it is. Sundar's eyes locked on him. Explain. Arjun leaned back in his chair, fingers drumming lightly on the desk, as if measuring his words. This whole breach, it wasn't about Google's infrastructure. That was just the stage. The real target was you. Your account holds something they want, and they built the entire breach to drive you into this exact moment. To make you open the door yourself. Maya shook her head in disbelief. You're suggesting they engineered a global cyberattack just to get into Sundar's private archive? That's insane. Is it? Arjun asked, his gaze never leaving. Sundar's. Think about it. Years ago, before you became CEO, we worked on more than just that predictive algorithm. We built prototypes we never released. You locked those away? I know because I saw you do it. One of those prototypes could change everything, for good or for bad. Sundar's stomach tightened. He remembered it well, a project, so advanced it could autonomously rewrite code at scale, adapting to any environment. In the right hands, it could instantly patch vulnerabilities, strengthen defenses, and make systems unbreakable. In the wrong hands, it could dismantle those same systems from the inside without leaving a trace. Only 3 people knew it existed. 2 of them were standing in this room, and now someone else knew. They're after that prototype, Sundar said quietly. Maya's eyes went wide. And if they get it, they won't need to hack anything ever again. They'll own the digital world. The clock was already running. Every second they debated was another second the rogue node worked through. His personal archive. What's the play? Maya asked. Sundar didn't answer immediately. Instead, He looked at Arjun, the man who had started this chaos, but also seemed to understand it better than anyone else. Can we use the prototype against them? Arjun's lips curved in a small, dangerous smile. We can. But once we activate it, there's no one doing it. It will become part of the system permanently. You'll be handing me, and anyone who controls it, power that can't be taken back. Maya cut in. Can't trust him. You know that. Maybe we can't, Sundar said. But we don't have another option. If we can turn the prototype into a countermeasure, it can seal every door they've opened and trace the controlling entity back to its origin. The plan was reckless, almost desperate, but it was the only one that could end this without destroying half the internet in the process. Arjun began setting up the environment, his fingers moving with controlled precision. Maya monitored his actions closely, her eyes narrowing every time his code veered toward something unexpected. Sundar stood between them, reading every line, every variable, every function call like a man holding a live wire dot as the prototype booted up for the first time in over a decade. The lab's lights flickered. It wasn't just a piece of software. It was a living engine of logic, adapting and growing as it analyzed the environment. Linking it to your account now, Arjun said. Once we deploy, it will think for itself. It will hunt the intruder, like a predator tracking prey. Maya's voice was tense. And if it decides we're prey, then, Arjun said with a shrug, we all go dark. The deployment began. The prototype surged into Sundar's personal archive, scanning every byte, mapping the intruder's trail. On the live feed, they watched as the rogue node tried to retreat, only to find the pathways shifting under its feet. The prototype was rewriting the environment in real time, closing exits and rerouting them into loops. It's working, Maya said. Her voice edged with relief. But then something unexpected happened. The rogue node stopped moving and sent a single packet of data back through the connection. Arjun intercepted it and opened it on a side screen. It was a video feed. The image was grainy, but clear enough. A dimly lit room, rows of screens, and sitting in front of them was a woman Sundar had not seen in 25 years. His former Stanford mentor, Dr. Elena Vargas. Hello, Sundar, she said, her voice calm and deliberate. If you're seeing this, it means you've brought the prototype back to life. Good. I've been waiting for you to do that. The room went still. You built your empire on the foundations we laid together, Elena continued. And now the world is on the edge of something it's not ready for. I didn't start this breach to destroy you. I started it to force you, to finish what we began, to make the internet unbreakable before the wrong people tear it apart. But to do that, you'll have to let go of control. You'll have to trust me. The feed ended. Maya was the first to speak. It's a trap. Arjun leaned back, looking oddly conflicted. Or it's the truth. Sundar stared at the blank screen. His mind was torn between suspicion and the undeniable fact that Elena had been one of the few people who ever truly understood the scope of what they had been building all those years ago. The prototype was still active, still holding the rogue node in place, waiting for its next instruction. If Sundar gave the command, it could finish the trace and shut down the network permanently. But if Elena was telling the truth, shutting it down might also erase the only chance they had to secure the digital world forever. Mia's voice cut through his thoughts. You have to choose, now. Sundar closed his eyes for half a second, feeling the weight of billions of lives pressing on the decision. When he opened them, his voice was steady. Deploy the prototype globally. Finish it. Arjun's fingers moved and the command was sent on the screens. The breach imploded. Every open path snapped shut. Every shadow node was cut off from its hub. And then, in one final burst of light across the data map, the prototype spread into the world's networks, embedding itself like a silent guardian. The room exhaled in unison. It was over. Or so they thought. As the last alerts faded. Sundar's phone buzzed again. A new message. No number. Just 4 words. Now it really begins.